Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, before you joined the FBI, you railed against it for covering up Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking ring. Let me refresh your memory with this clip. December 2023 interview with a challenge to the FBI and harsh words for Republicans in Congress for not getting the Epstein files out to the public.
"3 minutes ago, inside a sealed federal hearing chamber, something happened that senior staff would later describe as the instant the entire investigation changed direction. No warning. No preamble. Just a voice. Calm. Controlled. Surgical. And that voice belonged to Jamie Raskin. The room was already tense before he spoke. Mahogany desks arranged in a hard semicircle. Staffers seated in rigid rows. Legal pads untouched. Microphones glowing red. A ceiling camera angled downward like an unblinking eye. At the center witness table sat Kash Patel, posture straight, expression practiced, hands folded with deliberate stillness. He looked ready. Prepared. Untouchable. And for a brief moment, he was. Raskin didn't raise his voice. He didn't gesture. He didn't even look down at his notes. He simply said, "Let's read them." A clerk shifted in her chair. A pen stopped moving. Someone near the press row leaned forward. Because everyone sensed the same thing at once. This was not a question. This was an event. A thin folder slid across the desk. Off-white. Unmarked. Unclassified to the eye. But the weight of it changed the oxygen in the room. Raskin opened it slowly. Not theatrically. Precisely. The kind of movement surgeons use when they already know what they're about to find. Name 1. He read it. No reaction from Patel. Name 2. Still nothing. Name 3. A blink. Not dramatic. But measurable. And that was when observers realized. This wasn't a list for the record. This was a countdown. The 4th name landed heavier. The 5th name. A swallow. Subtle. Almost invisible. Unless you were watching for it. Raskin was. He didn't speed up. He slowed down. Because he understood something most people in that room didn't yet understand. Timing is power. Name 6. Silence. A chair creaked somewhere behind the witness row. Name 7. A camera lens adjusted focus. Name 8. A staff attorney stopped typing. But that wasn't the moment that changed everything. Not yet. Because the trap wasn't finished. It was still forming. Raskin closed the folder halfway. Looked up. And asked a question so simple it sounded harmless. "Do you recognize any of those individuals?" Patel didn't hesitate. "No." One word. Clean. Immediate. Confident. Exactly the kind of answer someone gives when they believe the ground beneath them is solid. Raskin nodded once. Not impressed. Not surprised. Just confirmed. Because that answer was the hinge. The point of no return. He reopened the folder. Removed a single sheet. White. Typed. Stamped. Time-stamped. He held it between 2 fingers. Delicately. Like evidence that didn't need explanation. "This document," he said evenly, "was generated from an internal access log." No reaction from Patel. "This log records credential entries tied to a secure database." Still nothing. "It also records who accessed the files connected to those 47 names." A pause. Not long. Just long enough for everyone in the room to feel the shift. "And your authorization code appears 23 times. The air didn't move. Literally. It felt like the ventilation system had stopped. Patel's hands remained folded. But his thumbs pressed together harder. Micro-movement. Pressure response. The kind behavioral analysts are trained to spot. Raskin didn't look at him. He looked at the paper. Which was worse? "Would you like me to read the timestamps?" That question hung there. Heavy. Irreversible. Because now the choice wasn't whether information would surface. It was whether Patel would confront it, or be buried under it. "Yes or no," Raskin said. Simple. Binary. Unavoidable. Patel shifted. Barely. But enough for his chair to whisper against the floor. "I don't recall accessing those files." Measured tone. Careful wording. Legal safe ground. Several committee members nodded subtly. Standard response. Expected response. Safe response. But Raskin's eyes finally lifted. And in that instant, the temperature changed. Interesting, he said. No accusation. No sarcasm. Just a word. But inside that word lived a warning. Because he wasn't finished. Not even close. He slid a second sheet from the folder. Thicker paper. Government header. Signature block. This authorization renewal form, he continued, was signed 48 hours after the first access log entry. He rotated it. Faced it toward Patel. And it bears your signature. Silence. Real silence. Not the polite kind. The kind that presses against your ears. Patel leaned forward slightly. Eyes scanning. Jaw tightening. Just once. A whisper traveled across the press row. Someone mouthed, "That's bad." But that still wasn't the moment. Because the real pressure hadn't hit yet. Raskin folded his hands. Relaxed posture. Patient. Like a man who already knows the ending of a story he's letting someone else read aloud. "Let's try again," he said calmly. "Do you recognize any of the 47 names?" The room froze. Because everyone understood now. This wasn't repetition. This was tightening. Patel's throat moved. His gaze shifted from the paper? To the microphone? To the wall behind Raskin. Anywhere except Raskin himself. Seconds passed. Not many. 5. Maybe 6. But inside a hearing room. That's an eternity. "I invoke my Fifth Amendment right," Patel said. The words didn't echo. They landed. Flat. Heavy. Final. Someone exhaled sharply in the back row. A staffer dropped a pen. A camera operator leaned forward instinctively, zoom tightening like a spotlight. Because everyone knew what had just happened. Not legally. Psychologically. Publicly. Authority had shifted. Raskin didn't react. Didn't smile. Didn't nod. Didn't speak. Which somehow made it louder. He simply placed the paper back into the folder. Closed it. Aligned its edges. And rested his hand on top. Control. Absolute control. But what happened next stunned even veteran observers. Instead of moving on, Raskin reached for a third document. Thinner. Older. Slightly creased. "This memorandum," he said, "predates all recorded database access." He tapped the corner. "It references the same 47 individuals." A murmur rippled through the chamber. "And it lists a directive. Pause. Cleared for internal review only." Another pause. Longer. "Approved by." He stopped. Looked directly at Patel. For the first time since speaking. The silence stretched. Tight. Electric. Then he finished the sentence. "You." No one moved. Not a chair. Not a camera. Not a pen. Because that was the bomb. Short. Precise. Irreversible. Patel's lips parted slightly. Closed again. His composure didn't shatter. But it cracked. Hairline fracture. Visible only if you were watching closely. And everyone was watching closely now. Raskin leaned back. Hands folded. Voice steady. "No further questions." 4 words. Quiet. Controlled. Devastating. The chairman blinked once. Twice. As if recalibrating. Because hearings aren't supposed to feel like verdicts. But this one did. Across the aisle, an attorney whispered urgently into a colleague's ear. A journalist's fingers flew across a keyboard. Someone in the gallery mouthed, "Wow." But the true impact wasn't inside that room. Not yet. It was outside. Spreading. Because within minutes, clips would circulate. Headlines would form. Analysts would dissect. Former officials would comment. Legal scholars would debate. Not whether Patel answered, but why he didn't. And that distinction matters. Because silence, in a chamber built for testimony, is never neutral. It's a signal. Inside the room, Patel adjusted his jacket. Small movement. Controlled. But slower than before. As if his body now required instructions his mind wasn't issuing fast enough. Across from him, Raskin said nothing. He didn't need to. The structure of what had just happened spoke for him. A list. A denial. A document. A contradiction. A second chance. And then, silence. A perfect evidentiary staircase. Each step locked in place before the next appeared. No leaps. No guesses. Just inevitability. Observers would later replay the sequence frame by frame. Not because it was loud, but because it was precise. Precision is what makes moments historic. The chairman cleared his throat. Proceedings resumed. Voices returned. Questions continued. But the gravity in the room had shifted permanently. Because everyone present understood something they couldn't ununderstand. They had just watched a line being crossed. Not a legal line. A perception line. And perception is where power lives. Outside the chamber doors, aides were already checking phones. Messages stacking. Notifications multiplying. Because word travels fast when authority hesitates under oath. Inside, Patel stared straight ahead. Expression neutral again. Composed again. Controlled again. But the pause, that pause, would be replayed more than any answer he could have given. History rarely announces itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives as a list read slowly, in a quiet room, while a single man realizes there's nowhere left to step. And 3 minutes after it started, it was over. But its consequences were just beginning.